Adam, what has been your biggest takeaways so far from just what you've heard regarding Bears media talking about this game on Sunday?
I just think that it's different territory for the Bears and that it's one that they should win. I think it goes in that category, and they're a team that wants to be in more of these situations where they're favored by 4.5 points going into a game. But for now, it's actually more unfamiliar territory. And I think we'll learn a lot about this team and how they handle it on Sunday, back at home for the first time in a month, and in a game that they should win, because as much as you learn about teams when they're dealing with adversity, you also learn about better teams when they have games like this that on paper you should take care of, but in reality you turn on that film. And I've probably watched an unhealthy amount of Saints football this year for some reason. They've been tough. I mean, they really have been. They're playing hard for Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley. Now it's been a little bit of a different story on the road. That was their one blowout loss, was when they went to Seattle, and then they played the Bills hard as well, and then they just kind of got away in the fourth quarter. So we'll see if they come in the same intensity that they have in their 4 home games in the Superdome this year, because they've been pretty good in those games despite the 1-5 record.
So Adam, they play tough. What do they do well from what you've seen?
So that's a great way to put the question, because I've been using the word feisty in talking about them, but I don't know that there's a single thing that they do really well. Right. You know, it's like I don't know if the Saints have one thing that you really hang their hat on. They've been pretty good against stopping the run, which I do think is an interesting matchup in this game, because the Bears are finally have a game where they could say they ran the ball well, and now here come the Saints. But it's kind of similar as last week. I mean, we thought Washington stopped the run well too. So if the Bears can keep that going this week, I think that would be huge. They also don't give up a ton of explosive plays, which is interesting. I still feel like Caleb, though, whether DJ Moore plays or not, it seems like it's trending towards him being okay enough to play. I like the Bears matchup in terms of their wide receivers going up against this Saints secondary, and there should be plenty of opportunities to move the ball through the air, whether that's via play action or just intermediate routes. I think Caleb has a good chance to have a better game in terms of accuracy, getting back home to Soldier Field. His last game there was really good against the Cowboys. So I think that, for all of what the Saints have shown on film, and that they're playing hard, they're playing tough, they rally to the football, they're not taking plays off or really making an unhealthy amount of silly mistakes. Like, they look like a team that's pretty well coached to this point, and this is a battle between two teams that are have first-year head coaches, but talent-wise, skill-wise, the Bears should have the edge, and that includes the quarterback position. As solid as Spencer Rattler has been at times, there's a reason why he was benched in favor of Caleb Williams back at Oklahoma, and Caleb still should be the better quarterback on Sunday.
Our segment is brought to you by AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Save on dental implants today.
Adam, I'm so curious, what do you see? Because we've all kind of talked about how the Bears are very much the favorite in this game, should win this game. It's at home. They've won 3 in a row, one-win team. What's the biggest pitfall that New Orleans offers, in your opinion?
Like in terms of their weaknesses?
Yeah, no, I'm saying, what is it that Bears fans should be worried about when watching New Orleans? How does New Orleans win this game?
Well, I think if they win the game, it's because they've had a knack for sticking around in football games, and like I said, they've really only been blown out of the water. They've only had one game where you're like in the second quarter going, all right, this is a loss, and that was in Seattle. So I think if the Bears come out and sort of beat themselves, that would be what would concern me, because you look at some of these numbers. I mean, the Saints, in terms of EPA per play on offense, are 27th. They're 22nd defensively in EPA per play. And it's not like the Bears are blowing teams out of the water in those categories either, but they are better. They are, and the offense is trending in the right direction. Caleb's up to 13th now in EPA per drop back. That's trending in the right direction. So, for a team in the Saints that I don't feel like does anything particularly awesome, if you let them hang around and you are the team that, penalties that continue to be an issue for the Bears, and all of a sudden if that turnover margin flips the wrong direction, then all of a sudden that's the type of game where you're going, oh no, why did they just lose to the Saints? Now, how could that potentially happen in this game? Well, they still have Cam Jordan on defense. Granderson's been solid, and Young has not been out there up until last week, and he finally got he finally played last week, and he only played about a third of the snaps as they sort of rotated him in more. So if he comes on stronger in this game and they generate more of a pass rush, then I do think that this is an interesting second start at left tackle for Theo Benedict, because I think he's going to be tested a little bit more than he was on Monday night. Then that's maybe where you start to wonder, okay, are there some weaknesses here that start to snowball? But all that being said, I like where the Bears are going in those directions. I like what Theo Benedict did on Monday night. I like, obviously the game that Darnell Wright played. So, and I like where the running game's trending. So that's why I feel like this game in a lot of ways is sort of a good barometer of can the Bears keep the momentum going in all these different areas that they played better in Washington.
Well, I think, Adam, too, we wanted to ask you this. I think Grote dubbed you Mr. Special Teams. But you have experience as a special teams coach in high school, of course, and coaching high school football. But you guys both attend practices. What did you see out of Grote? You said you guys couldn't see any of Cairo Santos, right?
I didn't see him out there on the field yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, I don't think, unless the special teams were on a different field. I'm not sure, Hoge, if you saw.
They do that sometimes. Sometimes they're off kicking in the port. Remember, we only get to watch like 10 minutes of practice time a year, and sometimes during that period, you'll actually see them on a different field as you're walking to the actual practice field that the whole team is on.
So I said this, and I think it's good for us all to discuss as a crew, because we know, like Patrick Manley has told us, there are some kicks that are just harder to kick. They look easier, but at Soldier Field, they are more difficult. Mm-hmm. What's your confidence level in Jake Moody this week against the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different test. I think that'll depend on the wind. The last time I looked at the forecast, it didn't look like it was going to be a particularly nice day on Sunday. So, but then again, it wasn't on Monday night in Washington either. So, the story of Jake Moody is really more about like his own confidence, probably the best word to use. And he's got the talent, and he's been through stretches where he's been really, really good in this league. I mean, he kicked in a Super Bowl, so he's been in high pressure positions before. So you hope that the four kicks he made the other night, including the game winner, put him in a spot where he's feeling good. He's feeling confident. Cairo Santos has not practiced the last 2 days. So it sure seems like it's trending like Moody could play again on Sunday. A couple of things that I would point to, I still think could be better. Obviously, when he makes 4 kicks in the game winner, you kind of gloss over the fact that they did have a kick blocked in that game, and it wasn't a particularly well-struck ball. It was very, very low. Also, he put 2 of the kickoffs into the end zone. And I think what we're learning about the dynamic kickoff this year, and then moving it to 35, is touchbacks have become exactly what I think they should be under this rule, which is a complete no-no. So he kicked 2 of those 2 kickoffs, had a little bit too much under it, and it went all the way in the end zone, and the Commanders just took the ball to 35. So now the other ones were pretty good. So you want to keep that ball. The sweet spot seems to be in the corners, between the 5-yard line and the goal line. So if you could put that ball there and kind of pin it into the corner, that seems to be the best way that teams have had success covering kicks this season. Also, if you talk to the people down in New Orleans, their special teams have not been good this year. So that is an area where I think the Bears can have an advantage on Sunday. Phil Galliano is their special teams coordinator. He's actually been there for a long time. He was their assistant special teams coordinator under Darren Rizzi. Rizzi's one of the best there is in the league, and he was their interim head coach last year. after they fired Dennis Allen, but Rizzi ended up going to Denver to coach under Sean Payton again. So they promoted this guy Galliano, and it's been an adjustment. But they also don't have a ton of depth there in New Orleans, so that can obviously start to wear on your special teams.
Phil Galliano is a great special teams name. It just is. I don't know why. It just sounds like a special teams coach. Rahimi, Harris, and Grote here on The Score. This segment with Adam Hoge of CHGO and the Hogan Johns podcast is brought to you by Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. For all the right reasons, call 866-4Seasons. Obviously, big homecoming for Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator of the Bears. Hoge, I don't know if you want to speak on that at all, but I think this is a good time now with Dennis Allen getting players back, as he did with Kyler Gordon and TJ Edwards last week, to kind of assess what DA has done for this Bears defense. What have you thought about his performance coordinating the Bears D?
Well, I think it's been great. I mean, look, they were in a really rough spot when you consider giving up 50 points to the Lions and starting 0-2. And it was a weird feeling because despite that, I don't know that anybody was sitting there going, oh, this is the defensive coordinator's fault. No, it felt like, some bad circumstance, a bad run of injuries, and facing a Lions team at the exact wrong time after they had a clunker in week 1 at Lambeau Field. But I did sit there going, man, I don't know exactly what Dennis Allen can do here to fix this thing. And you know what? He's done a lot. And really the first thing that really stood out to me where I was like, okay, this is a defensive coordinator making key adjustments was in Vegas when they started switching up their coverages more. They were disguising their coverages. They were rotating those coverages, and it was leading to those interceptions that they got on Geno Smith, and they were confusing a veteran quarterback that didn't necessarily have in recent times a reputation for turning the ball over a ton. So that was a great sign. And then you see what he did after the bye week. Why not experiment with moving Shamar Turner to the edge instead of inside, just to get him going and to get anything going on that defensive line. Using Billings more in the run game, and then just accepting what seems to be something that he started. When I say he, Dennis Allen, in the offseason, which is experimenting with TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds playing different spots than they did under Matt Eberflus. And that made a huge difference as well. So, and I don't think it's just Dennis Allen. I think you got to give Al Harris a ton of credit in secondary as well. This is a good staff. It's a good staff. And Dennis Allen's proven to be, all business, all football, all the time. It's why he doesn't want to talk about Sunday's game on Thursdays. It's why he doesn't want to talk about New Orleans yesterday when he's talking about this game, this revenge game against his old team. He's all business. I appreciate that about him. And, it's been good. It's a well-coached defense right now, despite not being, perfect across the board.
I also, Adam, don't think that we saw the finished product game performance of Kyler Gordon. I think he's probably still coming back a little bit and getting eased back in. What do you guys think about just, and what do you think, Adam, about just how he'll be used? I think we might see, again, more blitz looks from him, a little bit more active when it comes to what happens pre-snap for him as well.
Well, and if you're looking for, it's a great point to bring up, Layla, because if you're looking for reasons for optimism that this defense can continue to keep ascending, Kyler Gordon's probably the number one outside of potentially getting Jalen Johnson back later in the season, right? Because if you go back to even what we were first talking to Dennis Allen about when he originally got hired, I mean, Kyler Gordon was one of the first names he brought up. It's not even like we brought it up. Yeah. He brought it up, right? And and then they give him an extension, and clearly Dennis felt like he was a chess piece that he could use in a lot of different ways. There was even like a flirtation with putting him back at safety on some snaps, I think, like just to move him around to give some different looks and confuse an offense, stress an offense. We know he can rush the quarterback too on blitzes. And here's the thing, it's now October 17th. We haven't seen much of that. And the reason, for a number of different reasons, obviously the biggest being Kyler Gordon was hurt. But even Monday night, like, I agree with the assessment that he was kind of just easing him back in. So this stuff that we were talking to Dennis Allen about, like all the way back going to January, it's still untapped. It's still on the table as something that they can add to this defense. And I think that has to excite you as a coaching staff, as a fan, somebody just watching the games, is what we might still see from Kyler Gordon, because I think that's still coming.
I love what Kyler Gordon's doing, but I got to ask, Dio Dingbo, I'm still waiting for him to register. Am I overstating things by saying he has not registered yet?
No, I mean, there's been flashes. I thought he was better at times on Monday. I think he's doing an okay job in the run game. But yeah, it's the same thing for Montez Sweat. When you, I mean, it's not even the Bears. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Micah Parsons isn't exactly racking up sacks right now for the Packers after that trade. Like yeah, he's getting pressures. Yeah, they're trying to defend it as they're accounting for him. And okay, get to the quarterback, sack the quarterback. That's what this league's about when you get a big contract. And Dio Dangbo was paid to do that. We haven't seen enough of it yet. So I think that's fair. As long as we also point out some of the other things. It's not like he's been a complete bust out there, but as a whole, they need more. I would still say Montez Sweat, who had a better game. But I think I saw a stat the other day that they have more combined roughing the passer penalties than they do sacks.
Yikes. That sucks. That's really what that is. I have no other way to describe that other than bad. Adam Hoge, thanks as always for joining us. We always like to talk to you on Fridays. And we look forward to the next Hoge and Johns podcast episode.
Thanks, Adam.